A low hum once resonated deep inside a stone pyramid, a frequency felt more than heard. Our ancestors did not just hear sound, they mastered it, bending vibrations to their will in ways that still mystify us today. This is a journey to uncover the sonic secrets of 25 ancient civilizations, from the ringing stones of the Incas to the harmonic chants of Tibetan monks. By the end, you will understand how sound shaped history, religion, and even the construction of our world's greatest monuments. How did priests in Egypt use acoustics to commune with their gods? And why did Maya warriors carry whistles that mimicked human screams? We are about to trace a hidden thread of knowledge woven through millennia. What forgotten power do you think lies in the sounds of the ancient world? That low hum we began with finds its echo in the silent, soaring geometry of Giza. The Great Pyramid stands not just as a tomb, but as a giant, silent instrument. Step inside the king's chamber, a room built from immense blocks of granite, and the air itself feels different, thicker. Modern researchers, armed with sensitive microphones, have discovered something extraordinary here. The chamber resonates at a specific, low frequency. This isn't an accidental echo. It's a product of precise mathematics and stonework. A room perfectly tuned. Some scientists believe the chamber's dimensions could even generate infrasound. Vibrations so deep you cannot hear them, but you can feel them in your bones, creating sensations of awe, unease, or even transcendence. This emerging field of study, called acoustics, asks if the builders designed these spaces, not just for the dead, but for a living, vibrational experience. Could specific chants or tones, amplified by the chamber's natural resonance, have been used in rituals to alter states of consciousness, to commune with the divine? The granite sarcophagus in the center adds another layer to the mystery. When struck, it rings with a clear, metallic tone. Unlike any ordinary stone, it suggests a knowledge of materials and acoustics that seems far ahead of its time. The pyramids, therefore, may be the world's oldest and largest sonic devices, their silence holding the blueprint of a forgotten science. What other frequencies are waiting to be awakened within those ancient walls? The pyramid's silent frequency stands in stark contrast to the piercing shrieks that once echoed across Mesoamerican battlefields. For the Maya, sound was not merely spiritual, it was a weapon of psychological warfare. Archaeologists excavating a site linked to the great city of Teotihuacan made a chilling discovery, a small, skull-shaped ceramic artifact. When blown, it did not produce a melodic tune, but a horrifying, rasping scream, the sound of a human in utter agony. This was the Maya death whistle. Imagine the terror of facing a line of warriors, not just with spears, but with these instruments, creating a cacophony of anguish before the first blow was struck. The sound was designed to shatter enemy morale, to invoke the presence of death itself on the battlefield, turning sound into a force as tangible as any blade. Yet this civilization held a dual understanding of vibration. The same people who crafted instruments of terror also revered sound as a sacred bridge to the other world. Their entire cosmology was connected to this principle. Deep in the jungles, natural sinkholes called cenotes were considered portals to Xibalba, the underworld. These were not silent wells, but vast, cathedral-like caverns with remarkable acoustics. A single chant or the drip of water would ripple and amplify, creating an immersive, echoing experience that felt like communication with the gods below. Priests likely used these natural sound chambers for rituals, where the very environment transformed their voices into something supernatural. This sacred acoustic design extended to their grand architecture, most notably the ball courts. The massive stone alleys where the ritual ball game was played were not just sporting venues, they were resonant theaters. The parallel walls acted like giant sound mirrors. The thunderous impact of the solid rubber ball, the shouts of the players, the roar of the crowd, all would have been captured and reflected, creating an overwhelming sonic atmosphere. Scholars suggest the specific echo might have been designed to mimic the sound of thunder, connecting the game directly to the rain, god Chak. In the Maya world, from the warrior's scream to the priest's chant in a watery cave, sound was the thread that connected warfare, ritual, and the very fabric of the cosmos. The Maya understood sound as a force of terror and transcendence, but across the ocean, another civilization refined it into a precise science of emotion and mathematics. In the sun-drenched hills of Greece, the theater of Epidaurus stands as a masterpiece of ancient acoustic engineering. A performer standing on the stone stage can drop a coin, and the clear, metallic ping will be heard by every one of the 14,000 spectators in the highest tier over 100 feet away. This is not a happy accident of architecture. The semicircular design, the stepped limestone seats that act as perfect acoustic filters, and the precise slope of the auditorium all work in concert to capture and project sound. It is a giant stone ear, crafted so that the human voice, the very essence of drama and oration, could reach the divine and the citizen in the farthest row with equal clarity. Here, sound was democracy made audible. Yet for Greek philosophers, this earthly mastery of acoustics was merely a reflection of a grander, cosmic symphony. The mathematician Pythagoras, experimenting with vibrating strings, discovered that harmonious musical intervals correspond to simple mathematical ratios. A string divided in a ratio of 2 to 1 produces an octave. 3 to 2 gives a perfect fifth. This revelation led to a profound belief, the concept of the music of the spheres. Pythagoras proposed that the planets themselves, moving through the heavens in their vast orbits, generated a celestial hum, a perfect harmonic resonance based on these same mathematical principles. The entire cosmos, from the twang of a lyre string to the orbit of Mars, was thought to be ordered by the mathematics of sound, a silent music that only the enlightened soul could perceive. This philosophy directly influenced how sound was used to shape the human experience. Greek musicians and playwrights employed specific musical modes, each with its own emotional signature. The Dorian mode was considered stable and martial, while the Phrygian mode was wild and emotionally stirring, said to induce states of frenzy or ecstasy. In the theater, these modes were not mere background music, they were active psychological tools. A playwright like Euripides would score his tragedies with the Phrygian mode to heighten the audience's sense of pity and terror, using calculated vibrations to guide their collective heart. So from the perfect acoustics of a stone theater to the mathematical harmony of the planets and the deliberate manipulation of emotion through scale, the Greeks wove a complete philosophy where sound was the bridge between geometry, the human soul, and the music of the universe itself. The Greek pursuit of celestial harmony finds a powerful, earthly echo in the Andes Mountains, where the Inca built with stones that literally sing. At the fortress of Sacsayhuaman, overlooking the city of Cusco, you will find walls constructed from massive, irregularly shaped boulders, some weighing over 100 tons. These stones are fitted together so precisely that you cannot slip a sheet of paper between them, a feat of engineering that has baffled scholars for centuries. But the mystery deepens when you listen. Some of these colossal stones, when struck with a smaller rock, do not produce a dull thud. Instead, they ring with a clear, high-pitched metallic tone, like a bell. This is not a property of ordinary granite. How did the Inca, working without iron tools, identify and quarry these special resonant stones, and why did they go to such extraordinary lengths to incorporate them into their most sacred architecture? One compelling theory suggests they were using sound itself in the construction process. The concept of acoustic softening or sonic levitation appears in numerous indigenous legends. Stories speak of priests or sages who knew special chants or used specific instruments to make the heavy stones lose their weight, allowing them to be moved into place by small groups of people. While this sounds like pure myth, modern experiments have shown that certain resonant frequencies can dramatically affect the behavior of granular materials and even liquids, creating patterns or reducing apparent friction. Could the Inca have discovered a practical application of this principle using rhythmic, drumming or tuned instruments to temporarily alter the state of the stone, making it easier to shape and maneuver? This idea of sound as a tangible force extends to the sacred landscape itself. Scattered across the Inca Empire are huancas, revered standing stones. These were not merely territorial markers. Many were strategically placed in locations with remarkable acoustic properties, such as natural echo chambers in mountain valleys or near roaring rivers. A shout or a blast from a conch shell trumpet at one stone could be heard clearly at another miles away, creating a primitive but effective communication network. More mysteriously, some huancas were aligned so that on specific days, like the solstices, the rising sun would strike them at an angle that produced a distinct shadow or a gleam that could be seen from a distant temple. It is possible these stones also served as sonic calendars, where the changing echo of the wind through a particular pass or the sound of water at a certain time of year signaled important agricultural or ceremonial dates. For the Inca, the world was alive with vibration, from the ringing rocks in their walls to the mountain drums of the earth itself, all tuned to a frequency we are only beginning to hear. That Andean stone rings with a metallic clarity that would feel strangely at home in an ancient Chinese foundry. While the Inca used the Earth's own resonant rocks, the master bronze casters of China's Warring States period created perfect harmony from fire and metal. In the tomb of Marquis Yi of Zheng, unearthed in 1977, archaeologists discovered a treasure that rewrote the history of music, a complete ceremonial orchestra centered around an astonishing set of bronze bells called bianzhong. This was not a simple collection of chimes. Each bell is an acoustic marvel, cast with such precision that it can produce two distinct, perfectly tuned musical notes, one when struck at the center and another when struck near the side. A single set contained 65 of these dual-tone bells, spanning over 5 octaves and capable of playing the entire pentatonic scale with a purity that rivals modern instruments. The technological leap this represents is staggering, requiring an unimaginable mastery of alloy composition, casting geometry, and acoustic calculation to tune bronze, a material notoriously difficult to work with to such exacting standards. But these were far more than musical instruments. They were instruments of state. In Confucian philosophy, which was taking root during this era, proper music was the foundation of a well-ordered society. The concept was called yue, which encompassed music, dance, and ceremony. Confucius himself taught that for a state to be in harmony, its music must first be in harmony. The properly tuned bell set was a physical manifestation of this ideal, its perfect intervals reflecting the proper relationships between ruler and subject, father and son. To listen to the bianzhong was to hear the sound of a virtuous and stable kingdom. Conversely, discordant or improper music was seen as an omen of social decay and political collapse. The bells were therefore central to court ritual, their specific harmonies used to regulate ceremonies, communicate with ancestors, and demonstrate the ruler's divine mandate to govern. The discovery of Marquis Yi's complete set, buried with him to maintain cosmic order in the afterlife, shows how deeply this belief was held. The resonance of bronze was not just sound, it was the audible heartbeat of civilization itself, a frequency that held the empire together. The metallic resonance of Chinese bells traveled across continents, finding a wilder, more primal echo in the frozen north. The Vikings, masters of the sea and saga, wielded sound not in stone temples, but in the open air, with a technology designed to cut through storm winds and vast distances. Their instrument was the lure, a long, gracefully curved bronze horn, sometimes stretching over 6 feet from mouthpiece to bell. Its design was acoustically brilliant, a natural amplifier that could project a deep, haunting blast for miles across fjords and flatlands. This was not an instrument for melody, but for raw signal. A single lure call could rally a scattered raiding party, announce the arrival of a chieftain, or summon a community to ceremony. In the fog of the North Sea, that sound was a lifeline. And in the heat of battle, a coordinated blast from multiple lures would have been a terrifying psychological weapon, a wall of noise meant to freeze an enemy's blood before the axes fell. But the Viking soundscape was not all brute force. It was balanced by an intricate and powerful oral tradition, the very fabric of their culture. Their history, lore, and mythology were preserved not in written texts, but in the spoken words of skalds, poet-storytellers who memorized vast epics. They used complex, formalized structures, strict rhythmic meters, and dense patterns of alliteration to turn stories into unforgettable sonic tapestries. In a longhouse, lit only by fire, the skald's voice would rise and fall in these hypnotic patterns. The repetitive sounds, the driving rhythm, acted as a mnemonic device, locking the saga into the memory of both the teller and the listeners. More than that, it created a shared, almost trance-like state, binding the community together in a collective experience of their own identity. The sound of the saga was as important as its story. So from the lure's piercing blast across the water to the intricate alliterative weave of a poem about Odin, Viking culture understood that sound controlled space, memory, and the human mind, using it to navigate the physical world and define their place within the mythic one. From the Viking skald's rhythmic saga, we travel to a land where the story is not just told, it is literally sung into the earth itself. For the indigenous peoples of Australia, sound is the very fabric of creation and navigation, a principle embodied by two profound concepts, the didgeridoo and the song lines. The didgeridoo, known as a yidaki in some languages, is the world's oldest continuous wind instrument, a simple, hollowed branch transformed by human breath into something acoustically miraculous. Playing it requires a technique called circular breathing, where the musician breathes in through the nose while simultaneously pushing air out through the mouth, using stored air in the cheeks. This creates a continuous, unbroken drone that can last for minutes or even hours, a sonic representation of timelessness. But within that steady, fundamental tone, a skilled player uses subtle changes in lip tension and vocalizations to pull out a shimmering cascade of harmonic overtones, higher-pitched notes that seem to dance above the main drone. This is not just music, it is a complex acoustic language mimicking the sounds of the Australian landscape, the call of birds, the rustle of wind, the growl of animals. Spiritually, the instrument is considered a voice of the earth itself, its vibrations a direct line to the ancestral beings of the dream time, the epoch of creation. The sound is believed to heal, to tell stories, and to alter consciousness, connecting the player and listeners to a vibrational layer of reality far older than any written history. This deep connection between sound and landscape finds its ultimate expression in the concept of song lines, also known as dreaming tracks. These are not physical paths you see, but acoustic maps you hear and remember. Across the vast continent, every feature of the land, every waterhole, mountain and rock formation is encoded within a specific series of songs, dances, and stories. An elder walking the land would sing these songs in a precise sequence, and the lyrics and rhythms would describe the landmarks, the distances, and the resources found along the route. To know the song was to know the way. But a songline is far more than a navigational aid. It is a living record of the dream time, when ancestral beings walked the earth and sang the world into existence. By singing the song while traveling the path, the singer is not merely describing the landscape, they are actively participating in its continual creation, reaffirming the sacred bond between people, story, and place. The geography itself is held in memory as melody. So while one culture built with ringing stones, another mapped a continent with resonant breath and sacred song, proving that the most powerful frequencies are those that bind a people to their home. The breath that maps a continent finds its counterpart in the syllable that is said to have created the universe. In ancient India, the exploration of sound moved beyond instruments and landscapes into a profound science of vibration itself, a philosophy meticulously detailed in texts like the Vedas and the Natya Shastra. At its core is the principle of Nada Brahma, the concept that the entire cosmos is sound, a divine vibration. This is not a metaphor. The universe, from the smallest atom to the grandest galaxy, is understood as a manifestation of a primordial hum, a frequency from which all matter and consciousness emerged. This foundational belief gave rise to one of the world's most sophisticated and ancient musical systems. Indian classical music is built upon a detailed acoustic architecture of swaras, the 7 basic notes, which are not fixed pitches like in Western music, but subtle, fluid tones that bend and interact. These are organized into ragas, specific melodic frameworks, each associated with a particular time of day, season, and emotional state. A raga for the monsoon rain sounds completely different from one for the quiet of dawn, designed to evoke those specific feelings in the listener. The system is held together by tala, complex rhythmic cycles that can stretch for dozens of beats, a mathematical heartbeat guiding the melody. This was a science of emotional and spiritual engineering through vibration. But the most direct application of Nada Brahma was in the practice of mantra. A mantra is not a prayer in the ordinary sense. It is a precise sequence of sacred syllables, such as the primordial Om, believed to carry a specific vibrational signature. The ancient sages taught that correctly chanting a mantra with proper focus and pronunciation does not just ask a god for something. It generates a frequency that actively alters the practitioner's consciousness and the surrounding environment. Each syllable's vibration is thought to resonate with a particular energy center in the body or a facet of cosmic reality. Repetition of these sounds was a technology for inner transformation, a way to tune the individual self, the jiva, back into harmony with the universal self, Brahman. This was the ultimate goal, to use the science of sound not for communication or celebration, but for liberation, making the journey from the noise of the world to the silent source of all vibration. That journey from the silent hum of creation leads us to the misty coast of ancient Brittany, where the Celts raised a forest of stone to the sky. At Karnak, over 3,000 massive standing stones march in eerie, parallel rows across the landscape for miles. This is not a random collection. It is a deliberate, colossal arrangement that seems to defy simple explanation. While many theories focus on astronomical alignments, a compelling acoustic possibility emerges. The specific placement of these megaliths, the way they form natural corridors and alleys, could have transformed the entire site into a giant, resonant instrument. On a day with a steady wind, or during a ceremony with rhythmic drumming or chanting, the stones would have acted as a complex filter and amplifier. Sound waves would bounce between the granite rows, creating zones of intense focus and quiet shadow, a living soundscape shaped by human hands millennia ago. The very ground might have hummed with a low frequency, turning a ritual into an immersive vibrational experience where the boundary between the human voice and the voice of the land dissolved. This manipulation of the natural soundscape finds its priests in the mysterious Druids, the spiritual leaders of the Celtic world. While they left no written records, Roman historians noted their profound reverence for oral tradition and their practice of conducting rituals in sacred groves, particularly of oak trees. An ancient oak grove is not a silent place. It possesses a unique acoustic signature. The rustle of countless leaves creates a constant, soothing white noise, a natural sonic blanket that can mask distant sounds and focus attention inward. The irregular trunks and canopy would scatter and soften human voices, making a single speaker's chant seem to come from all directions at once, as if the forest itself were speaking. It is easy to imagine a druid elder leading a chant in such a space, the syllables absorbed and reflected by the living wood, the acoustics transforming a human ritual into a conversation with the natural world. The druids' legendary mastery of memory, their ability to hold vast histories and laws in their minds, was likely aided by these sonic environments, using rhythmic poetry and chant in resonant groves to etch knowledge into the minds of their students. Together, the silent, waiting stones of Carnac and the chanting oaks of the Druid groves represent a European tradition of weaving sacred sound directly into the earth and the trees, using landscape as an instrument for ritual. The living stones of Carnac stand in stark contrast to the baked mud brick towers that once defined the Mesopotamian skyline. The ziggurat was more than a temple. It was a man-made mountain, a stairway to the gods built to dominate the flat plains. Its towering, stepped terraces were not just architectural features, they were likely grand acoustic stages. Picture a high priest standing at the summit, his voice carrying on the dry, still air. The sheer height and the hard, sun-baked surfaces of the bricks would have acted as a natural amplifier, projecting chants and invocations across the entire city-state below. For the citizens of Ur or Babylon, the sound drifting down from that sacred peak was the literal voice of divine authority, a constant auditory reminder of the god's presence and the priest-king's connection to them. These rituals may have involved specific tonal patterns or rhythms designed to resonate with the structure itself, turning the entire ziggurat into a colossal instrument of spiritual power. The act of climbing its steep staircases was itself a sonic journey, moving from the noisy bustle of the city streets through layers of increasing quietude until reaching a summit where only the wind and the chants existed, a physical and acoustic ascent toward heaven. While Mesopotamia used architecture to project sacred sound, their neighbors, to the east, the Persians of the Achaemenid Empire engineered sound with breathtaking mechanical ingenuity. In the lush gardens and opulent palaces of Persepolis, music was a symbol of imperial sophistication and cosmic order. The Persian court maintained vast ensembles, but their most astonishing sonic achievement was likely the invention of early automated instruments. Greek and later Arabic texts describe remarkable devices, most famously a water-powered organ. Imagine a complex system of hydraulics where flowing water turned wheels and pumped air into a series of precisely tuned pipes, creating music without a human musician touching a key. This was not a mere novelty. It represented a fusion of advanced engineering and artistic pursuit, a desire to harness natural forces to create artificial harmony. The sound of this water organ, a sustained, ethereal melody generated by a machine, would have seemed magical, a testament to the emperor's power to command both nature and art. This mechanical marvel existed within a rich tapestry of court music that deeply influenced the region. Persian musicians developed complex modal systems, intricate rhythms, and refined instruments like the long-necked lute or barbat, which would evolve into instruments across Asia and Europe. Music here was a tool of statecraft, used to dignify ceremonies, entertain ambassadors, and project an image of a cultured and eternally flourishing empire. So from the amplified chants atop Mesopotamian ziggurats to the hydraulic symphonies in Persian gardens, The ancient Near East mastered sound both as a pillar of divine authority and a triumph of human innovation. That Persian water organ was a marvel of imperial engineering, yet a far older and more primal rhythm pulsed from the islands and coasts of the Bronze Age Aegean. The Minoans of Crete, Europe's first advanced civilization, left behind frescoes that burst with life, showing lithe figures leaping over bulls and dancers, whirling in ecstatic motion. Central to many of these scenes is a recurring symbol, the labris, a double-headed axe. This was not merely a weapon or a tool, it was a potent religious icon, likely wielded in ritual dances. Imagine the scene in the central court of the Palace of Knossos, a vast, rectangular space open to the sky. Dancers, perhaps in a trance-like state, could have held ceremonial labrices, bringing them down on stone slabs or wooden platforms in complex, driving rhythms. The sound would have been sharp, percussive, and hypnotic, a metallic heartbeat designed to induce collective ecstasy and connect the community to their deities, often depicted as powerful goddesses associated with nature. The architecture of the palace itself seems designed for such sonic rituals. Unlike later Greek temples, Minoan palaces were sprawling, labyrinthine complexes with numerous small courtyards, light wells, and strategically placed columns. These features would have created a dynamic acoustic environment, where sound from a central ceremony would bounce, echo, and filter into adjacent rooms and upper floors, allowing those not in the main court to still be enveloped by the ritual atmosphere. The very design may have been intended to disorient and immerse, turning the palace into a giant, resonant instrument for sacred performance. Across the water on the Greek mainland, the Mycenaeans, the warriors of legend who would conquer the Minoans, had a very different but equally profound acoustic relationship with the sacred, focused not on the drama of life, but the mystery of death. Their most stunning architectural achievements are the Tholos tombs, colossal beehive-shaped burial chambers like the famed treasury of Atreus. To enter, one must walk down a long, open-air corridor called a dromos, lined with massive stone walls that gradually narrow and rise, funneling the visitor toward the small, imposing doorway of the tomb itself. This dromos is an acoustic masterpiece. Any sound made within it, from the slow march of a funeral procession to the chants of mourners, would be captured and focused, amplified by the converging stone surfaces. The effect would be one of increasing sonic pressure, a crescendo of noise and echo that culminated at the tomb's threshold, dramatically heightening the emotional weight of the ritual. Once inside the vast domed chamber, the acoustics transform completely. The corbelled stone dome creates a perfect, whispering gallery effect. A word spoken softly at the center of the tomb would be heard with unnerving clarity in every corner, while a chant would resonate with a long, lingering decay, as if the spirits within the walls were answering. For a culture deeply concerned with ancestor worship and heroic legacy, this was intentional theater. The sonic experience of the funeral rite, from the funneled march to the echoing interior, was designed to awe the living and honor the dead, with a sensory power as monumental as the stones themselves. In the Bronze Age Aegean, one civilization used rhythm and architecture to celebrate the ecstatic pulse of life, while the other sculpted sound to magnify the solemn echo of death. The whispering echoes of Mycenaean tombs find a distant, monumental cousin on the windswept Salisbury Plain. Stonehenge stands silent today, a skeleton of its former self, but modern technology is revealing its lost voice. Archaeologists, using advanced laser scanning, have mapped the surfaces of the giant sarsen stones in microscopic detail. The scans show something startling, evidence that the outer circle of towering trilithons was once complete, every stone perfectly placed. This was not a horseshoe, but a full, unbroken ring. And that completeness changes everything we think we know about the sound here. Acoustic modeling of this original structure shows it would have acted as a near-perfect sound container. Sounds generated within the circle, a chant, a drum beat, a human voice, would have been largely trapped and reflected by the solid ring of stone, creating a powerful, immersive, and private sonic environment. The noise of the outside world would have been muted, while the rituals inside became a resonant, echoing reality unto itself. What kind of sounds filled that space? Some researchers point to the smaller blue stones transported over immense distances from Wales. Certain types of these stones, when struck with a hammerstone, produce clear, melodic rings, like a primitive xylophone. These lithophones could have been played in sequence, their tones bouncing between the sarsens, creating a simple, haunting music intrinsic to the monument itself. The architecture suggests a profound understanding of acoustic physics, a deliberate design to manipulate vibration. This sonic chamber was precisely aligned with celestial events, most famously the summer solstice sunrise. As the first sliver of sun broke the horizon to shine directly into the heart of the circle, it would have illuminated a space already pulsing with intentional sound. The combination would have been overwhelming, the visual spectacle of light and shadow married to a crescendo of rhythmic drumming or harmonic chanting. This was likely a multi-sensory ritual designed to trigger specific psychological and spiritual states, aligning the community with the cosmic order through both sight and sound. Today, we see only the silent stones, but for the ancient Britons, Stonehenge was a living instrument, its lost soundscape as vital to its purpose as its alignment with the sun. While Stonehenge channeled the sun with stone, in ancient Japan, the sacred was summoned with the shimmer of bronze and the whisper of silk strings. The spiritual heart of Shinto practice is the belief that kami, spirits of nature and ancestors, inhabit all things, and sound is the purest way to invite their presence. This is most vividly seen in Kagura, the ancient ritual dances performed at shrines. Central to the dancers' movements is the suzu, a handheld bell tree adorned with multiple small bronze bells. Its sound is not a single, loud clang, but a delicate, shimmering cascade of high-pitched rings, like rain on leaves. Every shake of the suzu is considered a purification of the space and an offering of pleasing sound to attract the kami, creating a sonic atmosphere where the boundary between our world and the spirit world grows thin. On a grander scale, the deep, resonant voice of the temple bell, the bonsho, marks the passage of time and thought across the islands. Cast from bronze and often towering over the worshipper, these bells are struck not with a metal clapper, but with a large, suspended wooden beam called a shumoku. When swung, it produces a profound, low-frequency boom that vibrates through the earth and the body before blooming into a long, fading ring that can last over a minute. This sound is meant to purify the listener's mind, each wave of vibration washing away worldly distraction. The bell's tone is so revered that its specific frequency is considered the voice of the Buddha, a physical manifestation of enlightenment that spreads through the air. This stands in stark contrast to the meticulously controlled soundscape of the imperial court. Gagaku, the world's oldest surviving orchestral tradition, is music of sublime order and stillness. Its ensembles feature ancient reed and string instruments, playing slow, stately melodies that seem to hang in the air like incense smoke. Gagaku is not about emotional expression, but about the precise embodiment of cosmic harmony and the stability of the state, a sonic architecture as formal and layered as the court itself. Bridging the natural and the refined is the koto, a 13-string zither that rests on the floor. Its construction is a study in acoustic empathy. The body is made of paulownia wood, chosen for its light, resonant quality, and the strings are plucked with ivory picks worn on the fingers. But the true genius lies in the movable bridges under each string. A player does not just press a string to a fret, they actively manipulate the bridge before or during play, bending the pitch with a delicate touch to create subtle slides and vibratos. This technique allows the koto to do something no Western instrument can easily replicate. It can directly mimic the imperfect, flowing sounds of nature. A skilled musician can make you hear the ripple of a stream, the sigh of wind through bamboo, or the call of a distant bird, transforming structured music into an impression of the living world. In ancient Japan, from the bell's purifying boom to the koto's watery whisper, sound was the medium for inviting spirits, marking sacred time and painting auditory landscapes that connected the human heart directly to the soul of nature. The koto's gentle mimicry of nature finds its ultimate expression in a civilization that sculpted an entire empire to the rhythms of water and stone. The Khmer Empire's crown jewel, Angkor Wat, is not merely a temple, it is a perfect microcosm of the Hindu universe, built with an acoustic awareness as profound as its visual symmetry. Walk down the long, covered gallery that encircles the central complex. The stone vaults overhead and the intricately carved walls on either side create a narrow, resonant corridor. In certain spots, if you stand with your back to the wall and speak, your voice does not echo in the usual way. Instead, it produces a strange, metallic ringing sound, as if the stone itself is singing back to you. This phenomenon, likely an unintended but remarkable result of the precise dimensions and materials, would have been interpreted as a divine response, the voice of the gods answering from within the mountain of the world. The 5 iconic towers at the temple's heart, shaped like lotus buds, are arranged in a quincunx pattern representing Mount Meru, the home of the gods. Their placement and hollow interiors would have created complex interference patterns. For sound, meaning a chant uttered at the base of one tower would be heard differently at the base of another, as if the sacred mountain was modulating the human voice into something other-worldly. This architectural acoustics served a grand cosmological purpose, turning ritual into an immersive experience where the physical structure actively participated in the ceremony. But the Khmer genius for harnessing natural forces extended far beyond stone. Angkor was a hydraulic city, a masterpiece of engineering built on water. Vast moats, mirror-like reflecting pools, and enormous reservoirs called barrays, some stretching over 5 miles long, were not just for irrigation or spectacle. This controlled aquatic landscape was a giant instrument. During the monsoon rains, water would cascade through precisely engineered channels and spillways. The sound of this moving water, from a thunderous roar to a gentle trickle, would have provided a constant, shifting soundtrack to life in the capital. For royal ceremonies held at the water's edge or on floating pavilions, this natural symphony was the ultimate backdrop. More intriguingly, the Khmer engineers likely used this hydraulic network to power sophisticated devices. Historical accounts from neighboring cultures describe water-powered automata and musical instruments. It is entirely plausible that the Khmer, with their advanced understanding of hydraulics, created similar wonders using the flow from a barrage to turn wheels that rang bells, struck gongs, or blew air through bamboo pipes, creating an ethereal, machine-generated music that seemed to flow directly from the lifeblood of the empire itself. At Angkor, the sacred sound was not just made by people, it was engineered by the very landscape, a harmony of architecture, water, and human devotion playing in concert. The engineered waters of Angkor give way to the humid, primordial jungles of the Gulf Coast, where the Olmecs, Mesoamerica's enigmatic mother culture, forged a sonic legacy as foundational as their colossal art. Long before the Maya death whistle or the grand ball courts, these people were mastering vibration with an artistry that feels both playful and profound. Among their most captivating creations are the ceramic baby-face figurines, often discovered in burials and offerings. With their serene, almost otherworldly expressions, These are more than mere statues. Many are expertly crafted whistles or ocarinas, capable of producing clear, bird-like chirps or haunting, fluted tones with just a breath. A child's toy or a ritual object? The answer is likely both. In Olmec belief, sound could bridge worlds, and these small instruments may have been used to mimic animal calls in ceremonies or to accompany the soul on its journey after death. Their gentle sounds a comforting guide into the spirit realm. This intimate, personal use of sound stands in staggering contrast to the scale of their most famous monuments. The Olmec colossal heads, hewn from single blocks of basalt weighing up to 20 tons, are portraits of powerful rulers, their faces locked in stoic authority. While silent themselves, their creation hints at a society organized around large-scale, coordinated labor, a rhythm that likely extended to ceremony. Nearby these heads, archaeologists have found massive, carefully shaped basalt slabs. Some researchers propose these could have served as enormous ceremonial drums. Imagine the deep, earth-shaking resonance when such a slab was struck with a heavy, padded log. That sound would not just be heard, it would be felt in the chest, a physical vibration capable of unifying a large crowd into a single, rhythmic body during public rituals. This combination of the delicately tuned ceramic whistle and the thunderous potential of the stone drum shows the Olmecs understood sound's full spectrum, from the personal and spiritual to the communal and awe-inspiring. Their iconography reveals what these sounds may have been used to achieve. Olmec art is dominated by the were-jaguar, a transformative figure blending human and powerful feline traits. This imagery is strongly linked to shamanic practices, the belief that spiritual leaders could journey into other realms. Rhythmic drumming, from handheld drums to those colossal slabs, is a near-universal technology for inducing trance states across shamanic traditions. The steady, repetitive beat can alter brainwave patterns, guiding the practitioner into a liminal state of consciousness. For the Olmecs, the deep throb of the drum, perhaps accompanied by the whistles mimicking spirit animals, was likely the sonic vehicle for transformation. It was the frequency that allowed the shaman to shed his human form and navigate the jungle of the spirit world, returning with wisdom or power. In this way, the Olmecs did not just make music, they engineered auditory tools for metaphysical travel, establishing a core relationship between sound and supernatural transformation that would echo through every Mesoamerican civilization that followed. The Olmec shaman's drumbeat for transformation resonates across the Atlantic, where another sacred string connects royalty to the divine. In the highlands of ancient Ethiopia, the kingdom of Aksum rose to power, a civilization whose wealth and influence spawned the enduring legend of the Queen of Sheba. While her story is wrapped in myth, the sound of her court may still be heard today in the deep, resonant hum of the begena. This is a massive, 10-stringed lyre, standing nearly as tall as a person, its soundbox covered in stretched hide. It is not an instrument for celebration or dance, but for solemn meditation and sacred poetry. When played, its strings produce a slow, haunting, and deeply melancholic series of tones, a sonic texture that seems to slow time itself. The begena is known as the instrument of kings and monks, a direct link to that legendary past, and it holds a unique, unbroken place in the Ethiopian Orthodox Christian liturgy. For centuries, priests and scholars have used its somber music to accompany the chanting of biblical psalms and poetic texts, often during the long fasting periods. The repetitive, droning patterns of the begena are not a background melody. They are a vibrational framework for contemplation. The player plucks the strings in a cyclical, hypnotic rhythm, creating a sonic space that helps quiet the mind and focus the spirit on the sacred words. This practice represents one of the most direct sonic lineages from the ancient world to the present day. The technique, the repertoire, and the very construction of the instrument have been passed down through generations within the church, largely untouched by outside musical influences. To hear the begana is to hear an echo of the Aksumite court, a sound that once accompanied royal decrees and spiritual seekers alike, now preserved as a living bridge between the age of Solomon and Sheba and the modern world, a testament to the power of sound to carry faith and identity across millennia. The begana's ancient hum carries us to a city carved not from wood, but from living rock, where sound was shaped by the very walls of the earth. The rose-red city of Petra, capital of the Nabatean kingdom, is a marvel of visual splendor, but to walk its paths is to experience a profound acoustic wonder. The journey begins with the Sick, a dramatic, winding canyon over a mile long, its sheer sandstone cliffs towering hundreds of feet above a narrow, uneven path. This was not just a grand entrance, it was a colossal, natural sound funnel. Any noise made within this stone corridor, from the clatter of camel hooves to a raised human voice, would be captured and channeled. The sound waves, with no escape upward, would bounce between the undulating rock faces, amplifying and carrying the sound forward with startling clarity. A merchant calling out to his companions at the canyon's mouth could be heard deep within by guards at the city gates, turning the Sick into a natural early warning system and a theater of approach. The very act of entering Petra was a slow, sonic crescendo, the outside world fading away as the echoes of your own passage surrounded you, building anticipation until the breathtaking glimpse of the treasury finally appeared. This mastery of natural acoustics reached its peak at Petra's heart in the magnificent theater. Unlike Roman theaters built from stacked stone, this one was carved directly into the base of a mountain, its seating hollowed out of the solid rock. This integration created an acoustic environment of unparalleled purity. A performer on the stage would have found their voice projected with natural, resonant force to every one of the 6,000 seats. The curved rock wall behind the stage acted as a perfect sound reflector, while the mountain itself absorbed stray vibrations, preventing muddy echoes. The result was a crisp, intimate sound even in an open-air venue, where a whisper could carry to the highest tier. But the true genius lies in how this human-made space interacted with its natural surroundings. Performances here would not have been contained. The sound from the stage would have spilled out, bouncing off the surrounding canyon walls and rock facades of nearby tombs, creating a layered, echoing effect that made the entire city feel alive with the performance. A flute solo might have been answered by a faint, delayed echo from a distant cliff, as if the spirits of the rock were joining in. This suggests the Nabateans used sound for more than entertainment. They wielded it for sacred spectacle. Picture a ritual procession during a major festival. A line of priests adorned in ceremonial garb moves slowly through the narrow SIQ, chanting in low, rhythmic unison and beating hand drums. In that confined space, the sound would not just travel, it would become a physical presence. The overlapping echoes would create a dense, immersive wall of vibration, a sonic fog so overwhelming it could induce feelings of awe, disorientation, or collective trance. By the time the procession emerged into the sunlight before the treasury, participants and onlookers alike would have been acoustically primed for revelation. The ritual likely culminated at the high place of sacrifice, an altar atop a mountain peak with sweeping views. Here, above the city, the acoustics flip. In the open air, sound dissipates quickly, creating a zone of intimate silence for the most sacred rites, a stark contrast to the amplified journey upward. The entire city, therefore, functioned as a carefully staged sonic landscape using canyon, theater, and peak to guide emotional and spiritual experience through the power of vibration. Petra's silence today is a mask, hiding the memory of a place that once thrummed with calculated, echoing resonance. From the echoing canyons of Petra, we travel to the deep, whispering forests of ancient Europe, where the Slavic peoples wove their world from spoken word and rhythmic clay. Long before the arrival of written scripture, their history, laws, and cosmology lived in the throats of storytellers and the strings of the gusli. This was a small, harp-like instrument, its gentle plucking providing the melodic backbone for epic sung poems known as byline. These were not casual entertainments, but sacred narratives recounting the deeds of mythic heroes, the wisdom of elders, and the very origins of the tribes. The gusli player, often a figure of revered status, was a living library. The repetitive, formulaic structure of the verses and the hypnotic, cyclical melody of the instrument acted as a powerful mnemonic device, ensuring that the collective memory of the people was passed down, unchanged, through generations. To hear a byliner performed was to participate in the ritual of remembering, to feel the vibrational thread connecting the present community to its ancestral past. This profound oral tradition was mirrored by a tangible, physical soundscape rooted in the earth itself. Archaeological digs across Slavic lands have uncovered countless ceramic artifacts shaped like drums, rattles, and zoomorphic figures. These were not children's toys, but ritual instruments. Small clay drums with skins stretched over their openings would have produced a deep, muffled thump quite different from the sharp crack of a wooden frame drum. They were likely used in ceremonies tied to the agricultural cycle, their low frequencies symbolically resonating with the fertile soil. Similarly, clay rattles filled with seeds or small stones created a constant, shimmering soundscape during dances meant to encourage growth or celebrate the harvest. The very material, clay dug from riverbanks, connected the sound directly to the land, making music an offering to the spirits of field and forest. Beyond ritual, the Slavs developed remarkably practical sonic technologies to navigate their vast, dense homelands. In the Carpathian Mountains and across the great woodlands, a form of whistled language emerged. This was not random whistling, but a sophisticated system where specific pitch sequences, trills, and modulations could convey complex messages, much like the tonal languages of some indigenous cultures. A shepherd on one hilltop could whistle a warning about wolves or signal the location of a lost animal to another shepherd a valley away. The high-frequency, piercing tone of a whistle carries much farther than a shout, cutting through wind and the rustle of leaves. This was sound mastered for survival, a clever adaptation that turned the human breath into a tool for mapping and securing the landscape. So in the Slavic world, sound served every purpose, from preserving the soul of the people in epic song, to coaxing life from the ground with clay drums, to weaving a net of safety across the whispering, endless trees with nothing but a skilled pair of lips. That Slavic whistle through the trees was a tool for navigating land, but the greatest masters of navigation by sound conquered an even more featureless realm. The vast Pacific Ocean was not a barrier to the ancient Polynesians. It was their highway, and they listened to its voice to find their way. While we often marvel at their celestial navigation, reading the stars like a map, an equally vital skill was wave piloting. A master navigator or wayfinder would lie in the hull of his voyaging canoe, eyes closed, and listen. He was not listening for silence, but for a complex symphony of wave sounds. The open ocean has a deep, regular swell, but as that swell approaches an island, even one still below the horizon, it changes. The water shallows around the landmass, causing the waves to refract, to bend. This creates a specific interference pattern in the rhythm and pitch of the water's movement. A trained ear could detect the faint, echoing bounce of waves crashing against a distant reef system miles away, or the subtle difference in the slap of water against the hull that signaled a current flowing from a particular atoll. The ocean itself sang a song of the land, and the navigator, by memorizing the acoustic signature of different island groups, could literally hear his way home. This was a science of listening refined over generations, turning the most ephemeral of sensations, sound on water, into a precise navigational instrument. On these epic voyages, sound also maintained the human connection between canoes. The pew, a conch-shell trumpet, was their maritime lifeline. In the fog or the dark of a moonless night, when visual signals failed, a deep, resonant blast from a pew could cut through the wind and carry for miles over water. One blast might mean, "Stay close." Another might signal, "Land sighted," or "Danger ahead." It was a language of survival, a shared vibration that kept the scattered vessels of a migration fleet together as a community. Back on solid ground, the pew's voice transformed. Its sound marked the most sacred and important occasions: the inauguration of a chief, the opening of a new Marae temple, the beginning of a harvest festival. That same low, booming call that guided canoes through peril now called the people to ceremony, binding them through a shared auditory memory of their oceanic origins. For the Polynesians, the sound of the conch was the sound of connection, linking voyagers at sea to their ancestors on shore, all united by the breath that made the shells sing. The conch's call across the water sought to unite people and place, but high on the roof of the world, Tibetan monks pursued a union of sound within the human body itself. Their sonic technology, refined over centuries in isolated monasteries, achieved something almost supernatural, bending metal and breath into tools for inner transformation. The Tibetan singing bowl is a masterpiece of acoustic alchemy. Forged from a specific alloy of 7 metals, each corresponding to a celestial body, its shape is not arbitrary. The curved sides and rounded bottom are designed to maximize resonance. When a wooden mallet is rubbed steadily around the rim, it does not produce a single note. Instead, the friction excites the metal to sing, generating a fundamental tone crowned by a shimmering cascade of harmonic overtones. These higher frequencies dance above the deep drone, creating a complex, living sound that seems to fill the air in the listener's head. This is not just pleasant noise, it is deliberate vibrational medicine. Practitioners place the singing bowl directly on the body or near a person's energy centers. The belief is that the rich harmonics can entrain brain waves, slowing the frantic beta waves of everyday thought and guiding the mind into the calm, focused states of alpha or theta, associated with deep meditation and healing. The sound literally washes over you, its vibrations felt in the bones as much as heard by the ears, a physical and auditory massage designed to dissolve mental chatter and restore inner harmony. But if the singing bowl represents crafted sound, the human voice in Tibet achieves something even more astonishing. In the dim light of the Gyuto monastery, a single monk begins to chant. What emerges is not a melody as we know it. The vocalist produces a deep, rumbling fundamental drone from the very base of his throat, a sound so low and powerful it vibrates the floor. Yet simultaneously, by precisely shaping his mouth and tongue, he filters and amplifies specific harmonic overtones from that drone. To the listener, it sounds as if a clear, flute-like melody is floating magically above the monk's voice, a second, ethereal instrument born from a single set of vocal cords. This practice, known as overtone chanting, is a physiological marvel and a spiritual metaphor. The fundamental drone represents shunyata, the boundless emptiness or ground of being, while the piercing, pure overtone melody represents form and compassion actively arising from that emptiness. The two sounds, produced as one, are a sonic embodiment of enlightenment, the inseparable union of wisdom and compassionate action. For hours, monks sustained this profound sonic meditation, the space around them saturated with layered vibration, using the body's own instrument to map the deepest truths of their philosophy, turning the chapel into a resonant engine for awakening consciousness. While Tibetan monks sculpted overtones from a single breath, the world's oldest complete melody lay buried in clay, waiting for its voice to be recovered. In the ruins of the ancient city of Ugarit, on the coast of modern-day Syria, archaeologists unearthed a set of cuneiform tablets that contained something miraculous. Among administrative records and religious texts was a collection of hymns, and one in particular, dedicated to the moon goddess Nikal, was inscribed with more than just words. Alongside the lyrics, written in the Hurrian language, were precise instructions for a singer accompanied by a 9-stringed lyre, a type of harp. This is the Hurrian hymn, a musical composition created over 3,400 years ago, and it is the oldest, substantially complete piece of notated music in the world. The discovery was groundbreaking, a direct line to the sound of a Mesopotamian temple from an era we thought was silent. But the tablets did not speak in a language musicians could immediately understand. The notation system was a cryptic puzzle, a series of Akkadian cuneiform signs that represented not pitches as we know them, but the names of strings on the lyre and instructions for the player's fingers. It was a tablature, a practical guide for a musician of that specific time and place. Decoding it required a deep understanding of ancient instruments, mathematics, and linguistic nuance. Scholars painstakingly matched the string names to the known tuning of Mesopotamian lyres and interpreted the finger positions to reconstruct the intervals, the spaces between the notes. After decades of work, multiple credible interpretations emerged, giving us not one definitive melody, but a family of hauntingly beautiful possibilities. When played on a replica lyre, the hymn to Nikal is not a simple folk tune. It is a sophisticated modal piece with a clear melodic structure and emotional depth. The melody moves with a solemn, reverent grace, its intervals creating a feeling that is both ancient and strangely immediate. You are not just hearing notes, you are hearing the musical mind of a Bronze Age composer, a person who understood tension, release, and the power of sequence to evoke a sacred mood. This single hymn shatters the assumption that ancient music was primitive or purely improvisational. It proves that by the 14th century before the Common Era, musicians in the Near East were working within a formalized theoretical system. They had standardized tunings, a way to write down compositions for others to play accurately, and a complex understanding of how to structure music for ritual purpose. The hymn was likely performed in temple ceremonies, the lyre's strings and the singer's voice weaving together to honor the goddess of orchards and fertility. To hear a modern reconstruction is an uncanny experience, a breach in time. For a few minutes, the meticulous scratches in clay transform back into living sound, and we are granted an audience in a moonlit courtyard, listening to a plea or a praise song that has not been heard for 34 centuries. It is the ultimate proof that our ancestors did not just make sound, they composed it, preserving their devotion in a code of vibration etched into the earth. The hymn's ancient melody found its echo in an empire that turned sound into a spectacle of pure power. The Romans did not just appreciate acoustics, they engineered them on a scale never before seen, using water, stone, and human voices as raw materials. Their most ingenious sonic invention was the hydraulis, the world's first pipe organ powered not by a keyboardist's lungs, but by the relentless force of water. Imagine a complex apparatus where a steady stream from an aqueduct filled a sealed chamber, compressing the air inside. This pressurized air was then released through a series of valves into precisely tuned bronze pipes, producing a sound that could drown out the chaos of a circus or an amphitheater. The volume was staggering, a continuous thundering blast that no choir or string instrument could hope to match. In the vast, open-air theaters like the Colosseum, the hydraulis provided a constant, imposing soundtrack to the games, its deep tones amplifying the drama of the spectacle and signifying the technological might of Rome itself. It was sound as imperial banner broadcast by hydraulic engineering. But the true, overwhelming force in those spaces was not machine-made. It was human. Pack 50,000 spectators into the Colosseum's towering stands, all reacting to the same moment, a gladiator's victory or a decisive move in a chariot race. The resulting roar was not just noise, it was a physical phenomenon. Studies of the amphitheater's acoustics show that the elliptical shape and the stepped seating acted like a giant parabolic dish, focusing and projecting the collective shout into the arena. The sound pressure would have been immense, a wall of vibration that the participants in the sand below would have felt in their chests, a tangible wave of approval or condemnation from the mob. This crowd roar was the voice of the Roman people, a democratic and terrifying force that emperors carefully could, knowing it could make or break a politician's reputation. To channel and control such forces, the Roman military perfected sound as a tool of order. On the march and in battle, commands were not shouted, they were blown. The cornu, a large circular brass horn worn over the shoulder, and the straight tuba, a long bronze trumpet, were the communication network of the legions. Each instrument produced distinct, piercing calls that cut through the din of combat. One sequence might signal a flanking maneuver, another a retreat, another to raise shields. In the fog of war, where visual signals failed, these brass voices provided the discipline that held formations together, turning a chaotic mass of soldiers into a single, responsive organism. The sound of the cornu was the sound of the empire's reach, audible from the forests of Germania to the deserts of Syria, a metallic assertion of control that organized conquest and maintained the Pax Romana. From the hydraulic roar of the organ to the metallic blast of the legion's horn, Rome mastered sound as an instrument of entertainment, crowd psychology, and absolute military command, leaving a sonic legacy as enduring as its roads. From the hydraulic roar of Rome to the whispered hymns of Ugarit, a single question now rises above the echoes. Why? Why did 25 civilizations, separated by continents and millennia, all invest such profound energy into mastering vibration? The answer is not one reason, but a symphony of them, a universal human impulse to use sound as the ultimate tool. First and foremost, sound was the chosen language for speaking to the gods. Whether it was the priest's chant amplified in the ziggurat, the ringing of a Tibetan singing bowl in meditation, or the precise harmonic intervals of the Chinese bianzhong bells, these cultures believed specific frequencies could open a portal. Sound was pure vibration, and the divine was thought to exist on a vibrational plane. You could not hand a statue an offering, but you could send a wave of harmonic praise directly into the ether, a direct line that bypassed the physical and touched the spiritual. It was the most intimate form of prayer, using the breath and the body itself to commune with forces beyond sight. This sacred communication had a parallel purpose here on Earth, for organizing and uniting the community itself. Sound was the original social network, long before wires or towers. The Viking lure's blast across a fjord, the Polynesian puconch shell over open ocean, the metallic call of the Roman cornu on the battlefield. These were life-saving signals that carved order from chaos. They said, "Gather here, danger approaches, attack now." But sound also preserved the soul of a people. The Slavic gusli player reciting an epic bylina, the Viking skald weaving a saga with alliterative rhythm, the Aboriginal elder singing a song line. These were not merely entertainment. They were living libraries. The rhythmic, formulaic structures of these oral traditions used sound as a mnemonic glue, ensuring that laws, history, and identity survived generations without a single written word. The story itself was held in the melody. Yet for many, sound was not just for sending messages, it was for transforming the receiver. This is where acoustics became a technology of consciousness. The deep, rhythmic drumming of an Olmec shaman, the steady drone of a Tibetan overtone chant, the resonant frequency of the king's chamber in the Great Pyramid, all were designed to alter the human mind. These cultures understood, either intuitively or through careful observation, that specific sonic patterns could entrain brain waves. Repetitive rhythm and resonant drones could guide the brain from alert beta waves into the trance-like states of alpha or theta, opening the door to visions, spiritual journey, or profound healing. Sound was the vehicle for the shaman's flight, the monk's enlightenment, and the initiate's revelation. It was a psychoacoustic key. Mastery of this powerful force also became the ultimate demonstration of ingenuity and authority. To bend sound to your will was to show command over an invisible, elemental power. The Persian water organ, singing without a human touch, was a spectacle of engineering genius that awed visitors and projected imperial sophistication. The flawless acoustics of the Greek theater at Epidaurus, where a whisper could reach thousands, showcased a civilization's dedication to democratic clarity and artistic perfection. The Inca moving multi-ton ringing stones, or the Khmer engineering a hydraulic city that played its own water music, these were monumental resumes carved in vibration. Controlling sound proved you could control nature itself. Finally, and perhaps most beautifully, these ancient cultures used sound to understand and map their very world. For the Polynesian wayfinder, the ocean was not silent, it was a chorus of data. The echo of waves against a hidden reef, the subtle change in the slap of water against the hull, these were acoustic landmarks on a liquid map. He listened his way across thousands of miles. Similarly, the Aboriginal song lines transformed the entire Australian continent into a musical score. The landscape was not described in a book, it was encoded in a song. To sing it was to navigate it, to actively participate in its continual creation. In these traditions, sound was not an abstract concept, it was a tangible layer of reality, a sensory thread used to weave meaning into the fabric of space itself. So across deserts, mountains, and oceans, our ancestors were not just making noise. They were conducting a grand, global experiment in vibration, seeking connection, control, and understanding through the one force that could touch everything, the divine, the community, the mind, and the very earth beneath their feet. These ancient soundscapes did not fade into total silence. Today, a new generation of explorers is listening for their echoes, armed not with conch shells or bronze bells, but with laser scanners and supercomputers. This field of archaeoacoustics is peeling back the silence of millennia. At sites like Stonehenge, researchers use three-dimensional laser scanning to map every microscopic contour of the standing stones. This data is then fed into sophisticated acoustic modeling software, allowing them to digitally reconstruct the monument as it once was, with its full circle of sarsens intact. They can then simulate sound within that virtual space, testing how chants or drum beats would have behaved, trapped and reflected by the complete ring. It is like giving the stones their voice back, one algorithm at a time. Similarly, inside the Great Pyramid, scientists employ sensitive microphones and frequency generators to measure the resonant properties of the king's chamber with precision our ancestors could only intuit. This is not just academic curiosity. It is a form of technological time travel, using our tools to understand theirs. The goal is to move beyond speculation and experience, as closely as possible, the sonic environment a Maya priest or a Neolithic elder would have known, to feel the vibration they designed. This rediscovery is not confined to labs and journals. Contemporary artists and musicians are directly channeling these ancient principles, creating a bridge of sound across time. Composers are writing new music for reconstructed instruments like the Chinese bianzhong bells, their bronze tones ringing out in concert halls after a silence of 2,000 years. Sound healers incorporate Tibetan singing bowls and the resonant drones of overtone chanting into modern therapeutic practices, seeking the same states of calm and focus those traditions cultivated. Even electronic musicians sample the acoustics of caves and ancient temples, weaving these natural reverbs into digital soundscapes, creating a fusion of the primordial and the synthetic. This creative revival forces us to confront a haunting question: how much of this sonic knowledge is gone forever? The specific chants that opened a portal in a ziggurat, the exact rhythm that guided an Olmec shaman into a trance, the precise melody of a hymn lost beyond the Hurrian example, these are vibrations that have dissipated into the air, unrecorded. We have the instruments, we have the rooms, but we have lost the instruction manuals written in breath and memory. Yet, perhaps the most important lesson is not in replicating a specific note, but in recovering a way of listening. Our ancestors heard the world as a living, resonant system. They listened to the ocean for navigation, to the wind in stone corridors for communication, to the harmonics of their own voices for transcendence. In our noisy, digital age, we have largely forgotten how to listen on that deep, vibrational level. The greatest discovery may not be a forgotten frequency, but a reminder to quiet our own world and truly hear the one they left behind, etched in stone and waiting in the silence. From the pyramids of Egypt to the wave patterns of the Pacific, we have traced a hidden symphony across 25 ancient civilizations. Each culture, in its own unique way, mastered vibration not as a simple art, but as a foundational technology. Sound was their spiritual conduit, a direct line to the divine. It was their social glue, preserving history and issuing commands across impossible distances. It was a sophisticated tool for mapping landscapes, from the Australian outback to the open ocean. And perhaps most profoundly, it was a deliberate technology of consciousness, a key crafted from rhythm and resonance to unlock altered states of mind and healing. They listened to the world with an intentionality we have largely forgotten. In our modern age, we are surrounded by constant noise, a chaotic soundtrack we rarely question or control. But these ancient masters remind us that sound is not just something we hear, it is something we can shape, a force we can engage with purpose. They challenge us to quiet the static and listen, truly listen, to the frequencies that still resonate from their world and in our own. Which civilization's use of sound resonated with you the most? Was it the haunting death whistles of the Maya, the mathematical harmony of the Greeks, or the oceanic navigation of the Polynesians? Share your thoughts below and subscribe to continue exploring the profound mysteries of our shared past.